Today, we have the honor of welcoming a very remarkable guest to our podcast. Please welcome Dr. Raminder Bajwa.
Luck is 99% readiness and 1% opportunity. Because when I came here and I realized that your education, is practically useless. I think if I'm not wrong, I think I probably interviewed with about 8 to 10 companies for an internship position and nobody took me.
What are the 3 major lessons that you've learned so far in your professional career here in Canada?
Do not be stuck in a mindset that, in India, main to ye karta tha, or I was doing this. You will get there if you're good at what you're doing.
Yes, that's true. Is there any advice you'd like to give young or any medical professional in India who wishes to come to Canada?
If you have a very well settled career in India, stay there.
Welcome to the Modern Sakhi podcast. We are your hosts, Neha and Sunena, and today we have Dr. Bajwa with us. And before we begin, we just like to ask her about her journey. So, could you tell us a little bit about your journey from being an OB-GYN in India and coming here, migrating to Canada 22 years ago? And how did you make your career shift from being a doctor to now into the corporate world in Baxter?
That's an excellent question, guys. I think the journey that I've had is the same that most of the immigrant newlyweds do, when their husbands are settled in a different country. And then you have to make this life-changing decision, okay, what do I do now? For my husband and I, he had just got his immigration to Canada. So it was almost like a decision that we had to take that should we leave or should we not leave? So we said, okay, let's take the leap of faith and try and see how things work out. And that's what we did 22 years ago. We just took a leap of faith. I was working as an OB-GYN in India, doing a very, having a good practice there. But the challenge is always welcome, right, in life when, you're like, okay, it's going to be, you're newly married, you have to support your husband like most of us do. So I think it was not a very conscious decision, if I may say so, that, it was like, oh my God, now I have to go to Canada. No, it was just a decision which you take, okay, your husband's there, we can probably have a better life for our children. It's foreign land, let's try and explore. So it was just a very simple, thoughtful decision like that. Your second part of your question is, how have I made a change? And again, I would say I was just at the right place at the right time. My husband always says one big thing, which is, he quotes someone, now I'm forgetting who the author of this quote is, that luck is 99% opportunity and 99% readiness and 1% opportunity, right? So I guess I was, because when I came here and I realized that your education, is practically useless, when you come from India. You bring medical degrees and you come here, it's practically useless. And 22 years ago, it was even more of, a place where you just couldn't get into. That's when you have to decide as a new immigrant, what do you really want to do? Do you want to pursue another 7 years of your life waiting for a degree to come to you and then start your practice? Or do you want to take your current degree or current knowledge and translate it into something else? And I chose to do the latter, frankly, because I just couldn't afford it. I had practiced for 7 years in India, and I just didn't want to waste another 7 years of my life coming here and trying to upgrade,
Right.
So I chose the latter part to say, let me see where, what are the other opportunities for me? So that was a simple change,
Okay.
Yeah.
But that must have been tough, right?
It was very tough because when I came to Canada, that time the times were different, right? There was no WhatsApp, there was no FaceTimes, nothing. So it was just my husband and I. We were the support system for each other. We didn't have any friends. We didn't have any family. So yes, it was very difficult from that point of view.
But did you face any like, did your parents say that, why are you changing your field? Because most medical people, like professionals who come here, they're always in this dilemma that, should we continue doing what we're doing, or should we actually take that leap of faith that you said, that step, and like move forward with something else?
Yeah, Sunena, I think my parents have always taught me that, you take your own decisions, what the best is for you, right? And if you have a supportive family and a very supportive husband, nothing is impossible. And I think I took that decision that at that point saying, I am not ready to spend 7-8 years of my life waiting for a decision for Canadian medical system to think whether I'm worth it or not.
That's so true.
Yeah. And I believe rather than parents telling children what to do, it's a great thing that they let you take your own decisions, and you made that decision very quick rather than waiting and contemplating whether you should or not, rather than wasting that time that you said. It's a great step. And a lot of people don't do that because they've already spent years working or studying to be a doctor in India, and then making that switch to a completely different field, that's a very bold step.
It wasn't easy, I have to say that, because I had to look into, what could I do, right? So there were two pathways that came at that time in front of me. One was, okay, let's do some education. I have to say that education hasn't really served me that as much as my experience as well as my medical degree has served me, right? So I got into a course at Humber River, in post-graduation in regulatory affairs. Did that, interviewed with, I think if I'm not wrong, I think I probably interviewed with about 8 to 10 companies for an internship position in regulatory affairs, and nobody took me. And this is the most funny part of my career, because when I actually went back to my course director and I said, what's the feedback on all my interviews? They said, people who are interviewing you are people who have never experienced a life of a doctor. And when you are giving examples of, when did you take a difficult decision, and your difficult decision was a decision which was life and death for a patient, they can't comprehend that. So you have to give them very, very simple examples, like, you were stuck somewhere and how did you take, and I'm like, but that's not what my experience has been. So how can I just fabricate examples, right? And then I met a headhunter who actually told me one thing, which was probably one of the most inspiring thing for me to hear at that point, because after going through 10 interviews and not getting selected for a mere internship position, he told me, he said, Rami, there are different type of cars on the street. Cars that are Toyotas, Hondas, people with regular degrees. But you're a Porsche. You have a MBBS degree, you have an MD degree. So no company or no employers are just going to pick you up and hire you. But those who do will never let you go.
You were probably way more overqualified.
That's what I kept hearing from everybody.
That's true.
And then somebody also told me, you need to dumb your degrees down. Maybe just put MBBS and cut your MD off. And then this headhunter told me, he says, never do that. Because if you're doing that, you're just bringing yourself down to the level of others. Keep yourself where you are, and some right company is going to pick you up. I'm like, okay, you just wait for it.
Amazing. So Dr. Bajwa, we would like to know, and I'm sure the audience as well, what are the 3 major lessons that you've learned so far in your professional career here in Canada?
The 3 major lessons. That's a very interesting question. I would say the first one would be to be humble, and to not have the chip on your shoulder that, I was this and now I have to do that. Be ready to imbibe and accept challenges as they come. Okay? Be ready to embrace change. That's the biggest one.
I think that's the most important.
The biggest one. You have to be ready to embrace the change. Like, I can give you an example of this one before I give my third one. Okay, let me give the third one first. The third one would be, I think the biggest thing for me is be your authentic, genuine self. because anybody can sniff when you are trying to put on an act, and anybody can sniff it out, that you're not being your genuine self. I think that is the biggest one for me. Even when I'm hiring people, that's what I look for. You may not know everything. Be open to telling that I do not know. That's the one advice I gave to my son when he went for his first interview. I said, be genuine. If you don't know, own it up and say you don't know, because you're not supposed to know everything, But what did I want to tell you before I said I'm going to tell you something? Now I've forgotten that.
An example.
I know, but
That's okay. Whenever you remember it in between, you can just...
I will. I don't know. It was on my second thing that I said, but
You were talking about accepting changes and...
The example I want to give you is just last year. I've been with Baxter Canada for a long time. I was leading their medical affairs division here for last 10 years. Last year, our company started that, they spun off a division, and then they changed the entire environment of the company to be more vertical models and everything. People were losing jobs. Everybody was concerned. And then my boss came to me and said, we would want you to come to the US to start this new function for this new company that we have bought. And they do not have medical affairs, and we want you to come and start medical affairs for this one. So suddenly I was like, okay. And there was this, oh my God moment, right? Oh my God, because I have never worked in the US. I do not know the US. So much so that in my office today, I have a map. So whenever people are talking to me and mentioning something, I'm looking at the map to see where it is, Thirdly, the team would be entirely new. Fourthly, I did not know the products because it's a new company that we've bought. Fifth, there's not a single person in that team yet. So I have to create, I have to hire, I have to do everything. Sixth, that company has never experienced medical affairs. So how do you change a culture, right? And 1 year down now. So it was like a complete change of what I was doing. And I was talking to my husband. I said, what do I do? Either I embrace it and say, yes, I'm going to go for it, or I start looking for another job because this current position that I have is going to get eliminated. So he's like, what do you think? I said, this is a challenge that I really want to take on. And today, we are at a place where we have a team, where we are putting that amazing project that I shared with you before this podcast, where we are bringing about 250 of the healthcare leaders, which are basically chief nursing officers, chief executive officers, chief information officers of the US healthcare, to come together in September for a 2-day immersive education program. So from starting in April of last year with no team to having a team of 12 people now, to putting a program like this together and hiring more people, I think we've come a long way. And today when I speak, I know people are like, okay, we need to listen to her because she knows what she's doing, And I think that's the most fulfilling thing for anybody. So embrace change. Do not be afraid of it. If I have to give just one thing for any new person coming into Canada, it would be that. Do not be stuck in a mindset that, oh, in India, main to ye karta tha, or I was doing this, or I used to be this, You will get there if you're good at what you're doing, right? So I think that's number one for me.
I think that was a very good
That's
advice.
great, yeah, because there's a reason why you come to Canada or any other country. So maybe it's an opportunity for you to give it a fresh start, try something new that you've never done before. If you're not getting something that you were doing back home in India, then this is a great opportunity to start something new, start fresh. So that's great. That's a great piece of advice.
Absolutely, Neha. I think a lot of us get stuck with the past.
Yeah.
And I am a firm believer that past is gone. You can't change it, and there's no point living in it, right? So embrace your today and tomorrow. And I think that's something that we all forget, to live in the moment and to, be hopeful for a good one tomorrow.
For sure.
Absolutely.
So So we've had an amazing conversation, great insights, great information. And before we wrap up and end the podcast, we just like to ask you, is there any advice you'd like to give young or any medical professional in India who wishes to come to Canada?
Well, the first one is, if you have a very well settled career in India, stay there. Life is not bed of roses in Canada, and grass is not always greener on the other side. That will be my genuine advice to anybody. If you have a good practice, if you are having a good flourishing career, stay there. If you want to come here as a visitor, see how things are, and then decide on your own. One is that. Two, if you do make the decision of coming here, then accept that the road is not going to be easy. Not everybody can be, I consider myself extremely lucky that I was at the right place at the right time. I had the opportunity that Baxter gave me to join, my current line of work. But not everybody is as lucky as I am. Okay. But if you do come here, expect that you'll have a lot of hard work to do, especially if you want to go back into the field of medical or medicine. If you want to be a practicing doctor, there's going to be a humongous uphill that you have to sort of take on. So expect a lot of hard work, but meanwhile, you also have to sustain yourself here. So you have to have your plans. How are you planning to sustain yourself, right? Because when I came here, it was just my husband and I. So we didn't have a big family to support us. So some of us are lucky that way, and some of us are not. And then you have to look at, so again, necessity is the mother of invention, right? When you're not that lucky, that is when you say, let me try something else.
So when you came here, you did not have kids. Your kids were born in Canada?
Both my kids are born in Canada.
So that makes a difference because it was just the two of you. For people who are coming with kids, it's a whole new...
Absolutely. And that's when it even becomes more important for you to evaluate your decision, because now you have a family to feed.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
You just can't say, okay, for next 4 years, I'm going to concentrate and do my studies, because Canada is not going to let you do that. It's not as easy to survive here if it's just you and your family. If you have, a settled family here and you're coming here into that family, very much like what Sunena you were describing, then it's, you have that ability to have that time, take a break. Yeah. So expect a lot of hard work, and expect that if the road is tough, embrace change.
Perfect. That was amazing. Brilliant advice.
I think a lot of young people who are coming in would take a lot of advice from the last segment that you just said. All the words, those were really inspiring and very, very, I think, important for people who are planning to come here. And I think this is going to be a very inspirational video on our channel. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming and
giving us your time.
Giving us your time.
Oh, you're welcome. It's been amazing, fun chatting with both of you. Thank you for inviting me on your podcast.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.